This podcast is brought to you by Most Valuable Podcasts, leading the league in podcasting entertainment.
Hello, college football fans, and welcome to the Primetime Podcast. My name is Ricky Widmer, and as always, I'm joined by the one, the only, Brandon Swanson.
Hey.
And Brandon, we're continuing the kind of journey we're taking through the world of college football. We started last week with our Pac-12 conference previews.
And we're not going to stop believing either.
No, we're not. We're going to go right through them. Last week we looked at the conference that wasn't in the playoffs at all. This week, I should say, we are in the conferences that made the playoffs. Me and Brandon sat there and went, who should we look at next, Big 12 or Big 10? And we decided to go with the Big 12 for this week. And how we're going to do it is we can't do it like we did last week, Brandon, where we talk about one division, then we talk about another division. The Big 12 can't be that easy because they can't have divisions and be like any other conference in all of football. They have to be difficult and have just one big hodgepodge of 10 teams. So what we're going to do is we're going to talk about the bottom 5 teams from last year, then the top 5 teams from last year, and then give our predictions. And let's dive right into it. And the team I want to throw out there to you first is this is a team that 2-7 last year, 3-9 overall, and new head coach coming in, Matt Campbell, the Iowa State Cyclones. Is this a team? I know that Coach Campbell has been trying to get his headway into the satellite camp, kind of what we've been seeing in the Big Ten with Jim Harbaugh. Is this a team that we can see from these bottom feeders kind of move up into the top 5 this year?
Well, do they move up into the top 5? Maybe not, but do they move up? I think so. They have 8 starters returning on defense, and that's going to help them make a step forward. They were ranked 107th in the nation last year defensively. That's just not going to win you a whole lot of football games, but I think that it's huge having those eight returners and kind of a core there, at least on the defensive side. I think that obviously they're going to have to take a look offensively because they just weren't that good. They're not going to keep in a whole lot of games. They had some interesting games, some exciting ones, but I think for the most part, you take a look at this defense, and if they can start to stop people this year, that maybe does give them a bit of an edge this year over last year, of course. But top 5, I don't know. I don't know. I think that with the Big 12, though, at least what it has been, you take a look at it, and you've got your first top 3, top 4 teams, and the rest of them, no one looks at. Doesn't matter because you're like, it's just going to be a hodgepodge of teams that are underperforming or very underwhelming. So I think that Iowa State, are they in the discussion of top 5 teams? Maybe, but I don't know about that.
Well, and this goes for the entire bottom half of this conference because the kind of outlier that I see for this conference is Oklahoma's still going to be good. TCU's still going to be good. You know that Coach Gundy is going to have his boys at Oklahoma State in Stillwater still playing some high efficiency. West Virginia will still be in it. Baylor's a question mark. We'll get to them when we get to the top half. But every team in this bottom half besides for maybe the 2 Kansas teams, I mean, Kansas State could be better, way better than the Kansas Jayhawks. But this is a bottom half where it's like you've got Iowa State. They've got a new head coach coming in. Charlie Strong at Texas. Can he finally make what's the word I'm looking for? The push to get into the topper half of the Big 12 with his team. And then you've got a guy in Coach Kiff in Texas Tech, or as I like to call him, the Ryan Gosling lookalike. His Texas Tech Red Raiders were right there, almost into the top 5 if they weren't outstretched by the Mountaineers.
Well, here I think this is the biggest thing for Iowa State is Matt Campbell. He's been there for only a couple of months, and he's already got a ton of energy. He's energized this fan base. Well, when Fred Hoiberg left, who are you gonna go to? Who are you gonna flock to? You're gonna flock to a new guy on the football side of things, in Matt Campbell, and he's bringing this new energy. And Paul Rhodes, former coach there, saying that, I think that this Iowa State team could be making a bowl appearance this year. Do they? I don't know. But I certainly think that they will be better than last year. And I mean, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe they do crack the top 5, but this is definitely a team that is still. It's almost like still learning. You know what I mean? Like, you look at the Oklahoma, their experience, they're the vet. This is like the rookie. That's at least how I'm looking at it. They still have some ways to go before we're talking about them being anywhere near an elite team, but certainly maybe even a competitive team as well. Could they be like a 7-6 or something like that? Sure, but I don't know if they go too much beyond that.
Well, and I mean, the one little snippet I wanted to finish with Iowa State before we move on to the next team is the most important player for them this year. To me, if you guys are new to the Primetime Podcast, I'm an offensive-minded guy. I usually look to the offense first before I even look to anything on the defensive side. And to me, the main guy that they're going to lean on is Mike Warren, because as Coach Matt Campbell said, this is a program that will have success running the football. And last year, if you look at Warren's stats, he had over 1,000 yards. He had just over 1,300 rushing yards last year on 227 carries and got into the end zone only 5 times. However, you look at that in comparison to the Big 12 teams last year, and you're looking at yards per game, they only ranked 7th with 182 yards per game. That needs to change because teams like Baylor and West Virginia, 326 and 228 at the top of the Big 12. Now, is Baylor going to have the same kind of success? Maybe not. However, Iowa State needs to lean on this guy because he's only a sophomore. So coming into a sophomore season, leaning on that running game, that could possibly set up the passing game and move Iowa State. I don't think they get out of the top 5, but they could be one of those teams that's like maybe 6 or 7 at the end of 2016.
Joel Lanning, quarterback, he could definitely be a threat as well because he can run the football.
And he took over the second half of last year.
Yes, he did. And they say that he is one heck of a runner. Needs to work on his accuracy in the passing game, but that's something that can come along. But I think that when you have a dual threat quarterback like that, you're going to be very dangerous. And for the Big 12, that is going to be very good, especially to put up a lot of points when you can do both things.
And before we get into the next team I really want to go to is the Texas Longhorns. But before we get to them, I want to give some love to the bottom feeder of Kansas. Basically, this is your 2 seconds of fame on this podcast. All they have to do to have a successful season, in my mind, Coach Dave Beatty just got to win a game. Last year, first year, couldn't win one. Just win a game and I'll be happy.
You just got to win a game. And, best of luck, and we'll see you in 2017.
0-12, 0-9 last year. But let's move into the Texas Longhorns. And this is the team that most people, when we were saying, we're going to look at the bottom 5, they're like, guys, look at the Longhorns first. I don't know why you're talking about the Iowa State Cyclones, but this is a team with Charlie Strong as head coach that last season was pretty rough for Coach Strong. I mean, there were times where his students were texting in the locker room saying, hey, I'm going to transfer. This was a coach that we thought the boosters were going to try to oust because they wanted to get Mac Brown back into the door at Texas. Is this going to be a team that we see get into the top 5 and all the boosters go, oh, no, we weren't trying to do that. We love you, Charlie. We love you. We believed in you all along.
Yeah, sure. Sure. He's 11-14 in 2 years, and the pressure is certainly on Charlie Strong this year to be a winning coach and have a winning program. And can you really blame him? I mean, Texas is not known to be a losing program, but the last couple of years they have been. That can't be the same thing again this year because if it is, Charlie Strong is out and out with a bang, that's for sure. But I think that this is a team who we saw towards the end of the season last year start to kind of get it. It's like something finally clicked with them, and they were playing football. They were playing pretty good football.
It was the Red River rivalry game. After they beat Oklahoma, it was, boom, a different Texas Longhorn team than we saw the first, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 games to start when they were 1-4.
Yeah, I think so, and I think that this recruit at quarterback for Texas, Shane Buechele, I mean, I don't know how to say that name, but I think that I'm not saying that he's supposed to be the savior in Texas, but I think that they're looking at him as, hey, you got the keys, man. You go. And if he doesn't, I just don't think that's going to look pretty good for Charlie Strong.
Well, and to me, the big thing, the only, besides the start of their season, they had a rough start where, like I said, they were 1-4. And then you said they kicked it on. They won that rivalry game, and it kind of seemed to spark their season a little bit. However, within that second half, you've got losses. You've got a 3-point loss to Texas Tech, a team that I believed the Longhorns should have beaten. You get shut out on the road in Ames against Iowa State 24-0. Those are two teams Texas should have beat. So, I mean, there are going to be games this year. You got to win the games that you're supposed to win. And their schedule this year starts off exactly like it started last year. They're going to be playing on ABC about 6:30 our time here in Chicago against the Golden Domers in Notre Dame. And then you get an easy UTEP game that's going to be on the Longhorn Network. And then, boom, you're right at Cal, right at Oklahoma State. And then you're directly into the Big 12 play. To me, Texas has to have a strong start to the year this year. They can't go 1-4 like they did last year and then kind of pick it up. They've got to be good right from that first game against the Golden Domers.
Absolutely. And we know how it went last year against Notre Dame. Not
too well.
Not well.
What, they had 3 points scored against them?
I was going to say.
Or they had 3 points that they scored. They had 38 against
I think
them.
Texas fans would like to pretend that game did not even happen. Yeah. Do you remember playing Notre Dame last year?
Nope.
No, I don't think we did. But I think that one thing is to look at is the defensive side. And you said that you're a big offensive-minded guy. I mean, so am I. But I think on some of these teams, you really have to look defensively, and especially on some of these teams that have underperformed. The thing for Texas is that they get a lot of D tackles. However, they're freshmen. These are going to be their first college games. Yet they're all going to be called upon because they're so thin. Is that good? Yes and no. It's a concern because they're being thrown into the fire real quick, and it's hot. It's hot. But they got to go. They got to do it. And if they get this experience now, that's probably better for later, right away. Maybe not. But they're going to have to learn on the fly, so they're going to have to be real smart. Their IQ is going to have to be up for sure. But I think then you have to look at linebacker Malik Jefferson. Last year, he was a freshman All-American. He was good. He's going to have to be the anchor of that linebacking group. They need to be able to get a pass rush. Some of these quarterbacks they're playing against, when I say some, I mean all, are pretty good. And they have got to put pressure on them. Those quarterbacks can't be standing back there, especially in the Big 12, who put up points like it's nobody's business. That can't happen. Texas has got to be able to get them some pressure, and I think that's going to be up to Malik Jefferson. He's going to be the leader on that defensive front. But I think overall, Texas has got to be better than last year, right? Right? They've got to be.
They need to. And I mean, like I said, the big thing is they've got to start out strong. And to me, almost, if I was a Longhorn fan, I'd be hoping, I would kind of be wishing that UTEP and that Notre Dame game were kind of flipped. And the reason why I say that is you say, hey, they've got a ton of young kids coming in on that defensive side. I'd rather have them see a team like UTEP game one where, let's be honest, they can make a mistake against UTEP and not get burnt. If you make a mistake in that first game, that big game against Notre Dame, Malik Zaire will make you pay. He will. And that team coached by Brian Kelly, I think that is going to be their point of attack. They are just going to, I wouldn't be surprised if they took the running back and said, hey, you know what? We're just going to attack that D-line and force them to stop us because they're so young.
One of the biggest things, I think, for Texas, you take a look at their schedule. They open at home against Notre Dame. Then they play road games at Cal and Oklahoma State before facing Oklahoma in Game 5. So we're talking about 4 of their first 5 games. They're not going to be cakewalks. Texas has got to be ready. They've got to be ready coming out of the opening gate, and they have got to perform. And if they can't do that right away, if they get off to a slow start again, I just don't know. I just don't think that they're going to end up having a good season. But if they can win 3 out of those first 5, now we're talking.
Let's move on to the other team in Texas that was in the bottom 5, Texas Tech. And the reason why I bring them up is I brought their coach up, Cliff Kingsbury. And to me, he's got to be I would kind of put him in the same boat as Charlie Strong. You need a better season. You came in 8-5, you went 8-4, or you went 4-8, pardon me. Then you go 7-6. It's kind of like if that trend continues, then this year is not going to be that good of a year because you had a winning season, not a winning season, winning season. So this year's probably not going to be a winning season, right? You can never go on that trend. However, Texas Tech, their fans, I bet you guys are sitting there going, we want to be back to how good we were in the Michael Crabtree era. We want to get back there. Cliff, you got to bring us there. You got to show that you can bring in the recruits. And with a guy, Charlie Strong was one of them. When you're 3 years deep, that third year is that year where it's like, okay, now I'm really going to be watching you because your recruits are coming in. Let's see what your guys can do because football's different than basketball. Football, you bring a guy in, freshman, sophomore, that third year, that first recruiting class that you had are now juniors. Well, in this case, those guys are now seniors. So I got to see what your guys can do. And if you have a losing season this year, I mean, overall, he's 19-19 overall in 3 years at Texas Tech. That's got to be, like, you got to look at that and go, well, you're not bad, but you're not good. And guess what that is? That's mediocrity, Brandon. Mediocrity.
Texas Tech last year, the Red Raiders set a program record for points scored. That is great for them. But do you think that that's something, again, that they go to? Do you think they get even better this year because they lose a couple of pretty good offensive pieces? Jakeem Grant is gone. DeAndre Washington gone on the offensive side. And you look at what Texas Tech was able to do last year. They put up the most points in program history. And yet, still, they don't do as well as they like. That is a concern, I guess, then going forward. Do you think they do that again this year? Do you think they still have that same high-powered offense in 2016?
Well, what it comes down to is if I look at last year, the only teams they lost to were the top 5 in the Big 12. Texas Christian, TCU, Baylor, Oklahoma, Oklahoma State, West Virginia. Every team that was on top of them in the standings, those were the teams they lost to. And that, like going to my point, okay, cool. You look at that last season, you have to build on that, though. You can't take a step back. And their schedule this year kind of resembles a similarity to last year where they're going to start off with SF Austin, should be an easy win. I think they can go into ASU and play Arizona State, beat them in a Arizona State team that will be Mike Bercovici-less, and they're going to be looking at a new quarterback. Louisiana Tech, September 17th. That's going to be the toss-up game because, yes, Kenneth Dixon is no longer the running back for, I call him Little Holst because he's the son of Lou Holst there in Louisiana Tech. He don't have his running back anymore. Plus, I think it was Jeff Driscoll was their quarterback. Yeah, he's now in the NFL playing for Chip Kelly and the 49ers. So that's a team that's going to have a new identity. They possibly could beat them. Then you get Kansas and Kansas State. This could be a team that we're looking 5-0 to start. But we're going to be looking 5-0 and going, who have you played? Then it gets tough. West Virginia, Oklahoma, TCU. That stretch is the stretch where I want to see some wins. That's the one I want to see some wins. Can you beat the guys you couldn't beat last year, however, without giving up ground to the people you did beat the year before?
You got to look at their offensive line. It's going to be young. It's going to be talented. It's anchored by veteran guard Baylon Brown. My thinking is, will they hold up? Will they hold up all season long? They're new guys, young guys, most of them inexperienced. Talented for sure, but I think that you have got to, you've really got to protect your quarterback, and especially in the Big 12 where you're supposed to be putting up points. You are supposed to be putting up points. Mm-hmm. No one plays defense in the Big 12. Why would you when you can put up that many points? You've got to have a good offensive line, and we'll see. Young doesn't mean bad. Young usually means talented. So we'll see what happens for them there as well.
So, okay, let's move on. And I know Kansas State fans are probably going, oh, but what about us? I really got nothing to say about the Thundercats from Kansas State, Brandon. You got anything about the Kansas State Wildcats before we move into the big boys of the Big 12?
Now, of course I do. My uncle went to K-State. We can move on now.
That's a nice fun fact. I'm glad that you shared that with us.
Yeah, I knew
on today's podcast.
I knew people wanted to know.
Everyone was wondering.
I saw the comments.